Let's talk a little bit about ported boxes, fourth order bandpass, and sixth order bandpass series and parallel. So that's 4 different enclosures we're going to talk about. And pretty much every enclosure that you'll see someone with a subwoofer in, pretty much is going to be one of those 4. And then occasionally you'll see a T-lining enclosure. And very little transmission line, though. They're very large. So they're not really practical for big, loud environments. They're good for a very long, wide frequency of playing, but they're so large that they don't work well for high volume playing. Anyway, let's talk about the 4 that I mentioned. Now, my enclosure back here with my microphone wire hanging down here is a ported enclosure. The subs are mounted to this chamber, and then the chamber has a port right here. These 2 subs are in a separate chamber over here, and then this chamber has a port. The port's tuned to about 34 hertz on each side. So this is a ported enclosure. But the way it's positioned in my vehicle makes it kind of a series 6th order enclosure. And I'll explain that. Whenever you have a ported enclosure playing into a chamber, and then that chamber is ported into the listening environment, that's a 6th order enclosure. And because of the way my vehicle is shaped and the way the box is positioned, this is a sub playing into a chamber that has a port playing out into this area, and this area here kind of creates a 6th order enclosure. Now, if I wanted to make a real 6th order enclosure, I could build a wall right here and have a port right above the seat, and then that port would be tuned to 1 frequency, and then the ports on the subs back there in the back will be tuned to a separate frequency. Now, for example, I could have the back tuned to say 20 hertz, and then have this port up here tuned to say 35 hertz or 40 hertz. And that would give a really good 50 hertz down to, 18 hertz or 17 hertz, a real good range of frequencies it can play. And this is what a lot of the guys that run real windy walls do, is they have a sub playing into a chamber, then that chamber is ported, then that ports into a second port, which comes out. If you look at EXO Consalto, look at his big baseband build, that's what he's running. He's got the subs all mounted back there, and a big huge port in the very back that comes up, and then at the very front of the vehicle, that hole opened up, that's the second port. And that's a series of ports. So it's a 6th order series 6 order. Because you got 1 port and then another one after it, all in the same chain. So if you have a box with a divider in the middle, and then port over here and a port over here, and then sub mounted on that divider, like in this scenario, imagine this is all sealed at the top. There's no subs up here. And there's a subwoofer mounted on that divider in the center. And then this port over here is tuned to 1 frequency, and this port is tuned to the other. So say you have this port tuned to 20 hertz, this port's tuned to 40 hertz, and your subwoofer's mounted on one side of the other of this centerpiece. That would be a parallel 6th order. So you've got the same 2 ports tuned to 2 different frequencies, but you've got both of them are parallel. They're not in series. Each port is right after the speaker. Now, there isn't one feeding into another one. So that's a parallel sixth order configuration. Now, for the last one, we'll talk about the fourth order, which is really common for a lot of the really, really loud SPL guys to run. The big world record breakers and stuff. And what they're running is essentially a small sealed enclosure mounted in a large space. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Okay, so you try to figure out how to explain it. You got an enclosure in there big enough for the driver to fit in, and it's mounted and sealed in an enclosure. And then that enclosure is inside of a very big chamber. And then that chamber has an opening at the front, which is essentially a port. And they're usually tuned really high, like 60 or 70 hertz, like way up there. And these particular setups are obnoxious to listen to. It's not even remotely close to something you'd want to have as a musical setup, because they literally play one note extremely well and nothing else. So they're good for making high pressure, getting a really high score, and they're completely worthless for everything else. But that's a fourth order build, and there are less awful fourth order designs. But most of the time when you see someone that's wanting to play what they will be able to do, they go with a sixth order, like a series or parallel sixth order. You're going to get pretty dang loud, but you're also going to get tons of musicality out of it, and they'll be extremely windy. You're going to get a lot of air movement, so you'll be able to do the hair tricks and all that. So the ideal wall for someone wanting to do that is like a series six order. The first one I talked about, where you have one port back here that ports into this chamber, and then it goes forward, and you have another port up by the listening area. That's going to give you the best air movement and the best demo vehicle. You know what I'm saying? And that's the orders. So, of course, I mentioned the T-line, and a T-line is essentially a quarter of a wave, whatever bass note you're trying to get down to. They usually set it for like 25 or 30 hertz, and then it'll play everything up from that. So it's based off, it's math. So there's some math involved, but you base the length of the port off of the dimensions of the driver and the frequency you're trying to play down to. And you can play that. They're really musical. They play all the way down to that frequency and up, and crazy good speakers. But you can wind up with a port that's like 12 foot long. So, and they're all port. It's essentially, if you took a speaker and mounted it to a long pipe, you would essentially have a T-line, basically. And then what they do is they basically fold that pipe up inside of an enclosure. They just fold it and fold it and fold it, until they get it all in the space they're trying to cram it into. It's an interesting thing to experiment with. T-lines are more complicated than building a good IB. So if you want to dive into T-lines, you might be there for the rest of your life trying to nail down the perfect T-line build, because once you get up to about 90%, that last 10% it's like fine wine. It smells, it tastes, it feels, it looks, it communicates. It's, in a nutshell, those are the 4 main orders that you'll see out there. 4 main types of speakers that you're going to see. Of course, ported enclosures, we already covered those, and then the sealed enclosure, it is what it is. You look up, what's his name? Doug Bernard, Soundman. Soundman, car audio or something to that effect, you'll find him. Look up his Ford F-150 blow-through build. I believe that was a parallel sixth order. And then look up EXO Contralto's current build, his van. That is a series sixth order. And then if you go to, hang on a minute, Sundown Unofficial, and look up his Blazer. I think it was a Blazer, a pink Blazer. He did a few years ago. That would be an example of a fourth order. Yeah, that'd be an example of a fourth order for SPL. So there's your three places you can go to see these types of builds, all in a very good fashion. And you can learn more about them, specifics. And of course, anybody that's playing real windy builds, like Jerry Ain't Loud, for example, he loves building sixth order, series sixth order builds. So pretty much everything he's got is a series sixth order of some kind. And he's really good at getting low and playing lots of wind. So look up Jerry Ain't Loud. You can see a good example of a lot of those too, besides EXO's build. But anyway, hopefully that was helpful. If you found it helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and leave me some comments down below. Let me know what your experiences are with these different builds. And also, if you have any questions about any other stuff in this particular area, drop the questions down below. I may answer them in the comments, and I may make a video about it. This depends on how interesting I find it and how many people I think are interested in finding out an answer to that. And we'll go from there. All right, guys. Peace.